Okay, so let's begin. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Sanjeev Jain, your host for the session today. I am a co-founder and director with Enabling World, which is end-to-end HR consulting firm. With me, I have two of my partners and friends, Sushil and Anupam, along with other team members. So very warm welcome to you all. The topic for today's session is, as you would know, is decoding students' mind for academic excellence. So I believe, and most of us believe, that education is one of the biggest investment we can make for the students, for the children, as a nation and as parents, right? So I think there are a lot of factors, and which Anupam, our lead facilitator, is going to talk about. There are a lot of factors which go behind academic excellence, which is one of the major stress or a motivation or inspiration or purpose for a lot of us as parents and as teachers. Uh, but we know some people perform, some students perform, some don't perform, right? Some not perform so well. And there are a lot of dynamics go behind. What role does mind play in the whole educational and academic excellence is something that will a little bit and understand what goes behind. So that's the topic today. Now, before we go there, let me take you through a bit of introduction about Enabling World. Now, Enabling World, as you can see, is end-to-end HR consulting firm. Our mission is simple, that we enable the world realize its full potential. And how we do is through our 5 levers, which is we are into HR technology and digitalization. We are into leadership and talent development. We do a lot of trainings, online and face-to-face, and leadership interventions across. Then we do HR consulting in almost all facets of HR. We bring a huge experience collectively within Sushil, myself, and Pushkar's partners, and with an expertise in HR. And Anupam brings a lot of expertise in social work, counseling, and education, etc. So collectively, a lot of expertise around through our team and ourselves. We do very selective talent search and supply, and employee well-being has been the very high focus in recent past because of current situation. Has been focused for us as well. So we do counseling, and we do various services and education and sensitization programs as a part of Enabling World. So that's very briefly about us. Going forward, so inside counseling services, another wing of Enabling World, and which Anupam, who's our lead facilitator, he started this company, which is focused on particularly on counseling. And they have online platform where, it's an on-demand counseling services. They do provide a lot of corporate counseling services to the corporates and different sectors. In school, he has done a lot of work, actually, is deep expertise in schools. So, and they are doing a lot of work on the wellness intervention. So that's inside counseling services, briefly about that. And you have the website address and their contact phone number, just in case anyone is interested. Okay, so very happy to introduce Anupam. Anupam is a dear friend. We studied together almost about 35 years back, and we have stayed friends. Professionally, we worked together, and personally also we stayed friends. So he's in UK. He's based in UK, but he spends a lot of his time in India. And his expertise, we all come from School of Social Work. We did our master in social work from Jamia. He spent a lot of his time, more than 30 years, in social work. SW stands for social work, into education, especially in the childcare, psychiatric social work, counseling. So almost a variety of areas within social work. And he has in particularly dealt with children quite a bit. A majority part that he has spent is along children, related to their education, childcare, foster care, etc., etc. And he has experience both in UK and India, as I mentioned. So we will be, we are very happy to have him, because when we talk about children's education, so we have a person who has very hands-on, rich experience, a global experience, not only in India, but around the world, right? So we'll be very happy to hear from him, his thoughts on this important topic. So with that, Anupam, welcome and have a great session.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjeev. And thank you and welcome everybody. Sanjeev has already introduced me. I'll just briefly talk about a little bit, a bit more on what Sanjeev has already talked about. I have been a child protection for almost all my life. I worked in that arena, and for last 20 years, I'm working in the field of fostering. Fostering is an area where you look after children who cannot be left in their own homes for a variety of reasons. And as a fostering organizer or fostering provider, my particular job is to make sure the children are not only getting a right environment to live in, but at the same time, we'll have to make sure that they are progressing well in what they call in England is every child matter agenda. And there are five areas, including education, making relationship, making sure that they are happy. And it's just basically overall growth and development that young person has to go through. The experience that I have is not only to do that job myself, but actually help and assist other people, which includes my social work team, as well as my hundreds of foster carers that I have, these foster families and their family members, to help them to create an environment whereby young persons thrive and they grow and develop. So that has been my main experience, and through that experience I have been quite fortunate to have learned a lot from young people in terms of trying to get into the inner world and see how they go through difficult times and how they experience it and how does it overall impact their lives and what they end up doing or they don't do it. So from that point of view, uh, this particular webinar, though it is only 1 hour, and I'll try to see how much we can pack into this 1 hour, which is a very short period of time, out of which I think I will only going to get 30-35 minutes to talk about it. So I will try to do my best. And before, at onset, may I give some health warnings? And the first of the health warning is that I have been a practitioner all my life. I'm not an academician. So the language that you would get from me would be a very layperson language that we talk on day-to-day basis, and it may not be very academic language that I will use. Um, so I thought it would be better if I can have the expectations right. So in today's session, today's discussion, it may call it, is we are going to cover a few things. And we are just some of these factors, we are going to just look at it because I think all of you are very esteemed group of professionals who are listening to me. So a lot of these things you know yourself. And other thing as a health warning is that nothing that I'm going to talk about today is that you are not aware of or that you don't know of. It's just, I'm just bringing it on the board to raise a thought in you and just to think about it, whether there is another dimension that is worth exploring and investing into, so far as the students' academic performance is concerned. So we will look at some of the factors which influence academic performance, and also to look at the cause and effect relationship between learning and academic performance. To do that, the format that we have put together today is that I'm going to be sharing with you two real life examples. So they're not theoretical examples or they're not from research or anything. They are real life example of two people of different ages who have experienced, if I may call it, non-performing station in their life. And then they were concerned about it. They wanted to do something about it with a little bit of help from external people and external environment. They managed to perform. So those examples I'm going to share with you. We'll look at a little bit about how learning process takes place and what does it entail and what are some of the subconscious processes which are involved with learning. And the main core and the theme of today's discussion is going to be looking at the nature of our mind and how mind works for us. And particularly how, if we can help and assist the students to understand a little bit how their mind works and what are the salient features of it. In my view, with my experience, I'm very, very confident. I think if some of us can take up that responsibility, I think we can. Despite all the factors remaining constant, I think young people would start to perform better. And I'm going to share some experience with you. And towards the end of this presentation, we will also look at the important role that all adults around that child, including parents and teachers, have to play and to help them to create that environment where they can thrive academically and they can do better. Next. Okay, so as I said, so there are a lot of factors which does have an influence on effect in terms of how a student is going to perform. And when we say perform, I think the performance in terms of academic uh, space is mainly looked at least by students in terms of the grade that they get and how much grade they get. They compare themselves and they evaluate based on how much they are getting out of their examination results. So, and it all depends on what is the motivation for them to learn, what is the kind of social environment that they are a part of, and what is the value uh, for education. And just to give a little bit a clarity as to what I'm talking about, if I give you the context within British society, in British society, you will find that Asian families, including Indian families, place very high value on their young people going through the education program as compared to the host community. So because that is the value the family has, they do lot of investment and they go out of the way to make sure that their young people get admission into best schools and colleges. So this is what I was referring to when I'm talking about education. So it does have a role to play in what young people end up doing. And it, parents are a very serious and very important influence, as are the teachers, and quality of educational support available to them, the peer group and resources at their disposal. And there may be tens of other factors, which obviously I can't fit into one slide to make it presentable. So that's what are a lot of factors. So we are not suggesting that the subject matter of today is the only factor which can affect the academic performance. However, having said that, focus today is going to be on the mind and how we can assist young people after we know the nature of mind and how it works to help them to enhance their academic performance. Let's go forward. Okay. Now, I think when I was going through the participant list, I see there was a lot of people from teaching backgrounds uh, and people from social work backgrounds who have a lot to do with young people and people that work in that environment. So in Indian context, I think I don't have to educate you. So far as the expectations are very, very high from young people. And I find myself qualified to say that for last 3-4 years, I've been going to various schools in India and I'm talking to senior classes, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I'm just having conversation with them. And I'm realizing, yes, those people are very, very smart. They're very quick in grasping what has been taught to them. But at the same time, they are very, very anxious and very stressed in terms of whether they're going to succeed or not. So there's a pressure for them to prove themselves or perform, and there's a high competition that they feel because there are limited number of places where they can go. Hence, everybody is trying to hit 90 plus marks. And the resources at their disposal, peer pressure, low self-esteem, and anxiety are some of the factors which negatively impact to what happens to their academic performance. Next. Sanjeev, next. Oh, thank you. Now, coming to the subject, learning and performance are the two main uh, components that we would be looking at today. And in between this circle, you will see I have put two words. It says QM, and QM refers to quality of mind. So what I am proposing here, or what I'm stating here, is in my view and my experience, professional experience of working with hundreds of young people, the process of learning as well as the performance of young people and students largely depends on the quality of their mind. And quality of mind, I am going to expand on it later, so it will become a bit more clearer. And to understand, I'm just going to use an analogy to explain it to you what I'm talking about. So for example, if you see a car's performance is largely dependent on the quality of its engine. There are other components to a car, which is its body, its tire, the body frame, the upholstery, and a whole lot of other gadgets in it, the IT and the computer system. There's a whole lot of things that makes a car. However, no matter how expensive a car may be, the car's job is to take you from A to B, and that function cannot be performed by a car if the engine of that car is not in right shape and health. So, and this is where I think I'm putting the emphasis on the role of mind in terms of young people's performance. Okay, in order to do that, let me spend a little bit time on sharing with you these two real life stories. The first story goes for this 11-year-old young girl, and the other one is a story of a 50-year-old man who is 50 plus now. But what we are going to talk about is when he was a young man. Okay, so this 11-year-old girl was brought to my attention, and this girl was in fifth class. And when she came to see me, she was extremely stressed, and that's what she complained about. And why she was stressed? Because during entire fifth class, in all her unit exams, she was struggling to go past 60% marks. Her final year exam result in class 4 was 79%. So she was performing fairly well. Because her performance dropped, she was extremely concerned. And when she came to see me, it was December 18. And I didn't have much time left because I had my tickets to go back to UK at the end of February. So I had 2 months to work with this young lady. And so we did a lot of work, which I'm going to be talking through this session. This girl ended up in her final year examination as an average of 96%, and all credit for that performance goes to her. I had no role to play. I can say I would be a catalyst, if at all, but the most of the credit for that shift from non-performing to performing goes to her. And it came to surprise to me because I wasn't expecting for her to take that sort of a leap, but she did. Another example, Sanjeev, we can move to slide after next. So this story is about a man who was a young man, and this is a story in England. And this young person has a lot of self-esteem, low self-esteem, and all through his life, from secondary school all the way to master's degree program that he studied, he could never perform well, and I think his scoring was around average, around 50%. So based on his performance, academic performance, it affected his sense of self, and he believed he was a mediocre. There is only limited choices available to him, and he can only do this, that, or the other. And it's kind of lived in a glass ceiling. So he lived a very limited kind of life, and obviously there were certain situation in his life which made him to actually confront his own self and say why he, with all his qualification, all his education and everything, is not been able to have a satisfactory and happy life. So cutting the long story short, this person seek help, and using some of the nature of his mind and his stuff, when he became self-aware, some of those things, why things were happening to him, when he started to practice on some of those new learning, it started to help his life. It started to get his life to take a upward trajectory, and he started to do well in a lot of other aspects of his life. And way back in 98, 2000, he did another MSc program as a study program where there were 6 modules. Now the difference was when he was a young man and he was supposed to be studying, that was the only activity he was supposed to do. Now he was a grown-up person. He was married, full-time job, lot of social commitments, and very difficult to find time to go through the modules and study. Despite all those pressures and stuff, this person was securing consistently and an average of 85%. So attention I want to draw here by these 2 examples is it something to do fundamentally to do with you as a person, which determines your performance? If that was the case, why this 11-year-old girl at one point in time failing to perform, and little later, 2 months or 3 months down the line, performs much better than she was expecting? And same goes for this person. So just by highlighting some of this different and the shift that these two people have managed to demonstrate, that if they start to use some of their inner strength that they are bestowed with, they can do a lot of satisfactory performance in their own life, not only just academics, but any aspect of life uh, that they want to use their inner strengths for. So that's where I think I want you to just hold on to these two examples, and we will keep coming back to these examples. What I want you to do is to take a little 2-3 minutes exercise, and at this point in time, I'll hand it over to Sanjeev to put that exercise on.
Yeah. So hi everyone. If you can, what we need to know from you, in your view, whenever there's a situation, don't refer to only these two examples. You would have multiple examples where person was not performing and started performing, right? It could be you or it could be anyone else around you. We want to know, in your own imagination, in your own experience, what are some of the factors that help a person, a non-performer, or person who is low performing, to start performing? What could be hard, luck, hard work, etc., etc. What could be your experience? Yeah, so people have started logging in, Anupam, and we have started getting responses. I mean, you may start commenting on them whenever you feel like. Yeah, guys, this is anonymous, so it doesn't matter, right? So it's a adult learning, peer-to-peer learning. So we'll really encourage you to log in to the site www.menti.com, and we'll use this a couple of more occasions. So it's okay for you to take a little more time first time. And we have people already there. Anupam, you may like to comment on some of these. Do you relate to them?
No, I think some of the people are making very incredible suggestions here, or maybe sharing their knowledge and insight. And a lot of the factors are actually quite pertinent to what we are going to be looking at. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very, very encouraging that my job is going to be very easy.
We'll just wait for a few more seconds for people to log in, their comment, and I'll move the cursor because some more comments are flowing in. And motivation is coming pretty often here, right?
That's right.
Which is correct. Yeah. All right.
That's great. That's great. I think.
Let's move on.
Okay. So thank you very much. I think most of your comments or suggestions or ideas that you shared here, I think very pertinent and straight to the point. And I think the motivation was coming as a common theme, which is absolutely correct. But motivation at best works like a propeller. It propels somebody to move forward and do something. And then obviously, if they have access to a better system with them, they can use that force as a motivational force to take themselves forward. So we are going to look at it. So first thing that I'm going to be touching upon is a learning process. So I think it's an adult learning process, a learning process for all of us go through. So we can go to the next slide, Sanjeev.
Do you want to do this poll now? Or?
Oh, yeah, please, you can do it. Sorry.
Okay, so this poll again will go to the same menti.com, and you'll get a fresh page. And the question here is, think of one skill that you are very good at, competent at now, or proficient at, and in the beginning you were struggling about it, right? And which you thought you can never learn that, right? So pick up one of the such skill. You could have many such skill. Pick up one of such skill and answer in again menti.com. Yeah, Anupam, you want to make any comment here?
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of responses.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have talked about communication, teaching, presentation skill, public, cooking, very good. Bake, self-confidence, doodling, swim. Okay, that's very good. That's very good. So let's go back to our slides. So can you see what I just wanted you to have a kind of a mental exercise at this point in time and to understand the subconscious processes that we go through. So if I want you to kind of, if it helps you, just you can just briefly close your eyes and go back to that date when it was either the first day or days before that first day when you started to pick up and learn that skill. Okay, and just relive some of those emotions, the anxiety and the self-doubt and all those sort of negative feedbacks that you were giving to your own self and thinking, will I ever be able to perform this activity as he does, or as she does, or as all those competent people around you were doing it already? So we have that kind of a self doubt. We never can, at that point in time, believe that there would ever be a day that I would be able to perform this particular activity. Okay. So let me quickly, I think some of you may be familiar with it. As I said before, I think that this is nothing unusual so far as the material is concerned that I'm sharing with you. So this is a process of learning that most of us go through. No matter what learning we are talking about, it could be, as somebody says, swimming, So there was a prospect, there was a day when you never thought of swimming. Then, so you are unconscious about that particular skill area. So far as your life is concerned, you never felt the need of swimming, if I may use it, or maybe it could be driving. Okay. So then when you have no need and no reason to learn to drive, you are unconscious about that particular skill area. Then there came that day when you decided, okay, I must learn to swim. Okay. So when you started to swim and you went to the swimming pool with your trainer or whosoever, and when you were watching all those people competently swimming through back and forth and doing length after length, watching all that gave you kind of butterflies, and you wonder whether you would ever be able to do what these people are doing. Anyway, the point here is, when you're unconscious about a skill area that you want to learn, you are still incompetent. You don't know the skill. Okay. So now you come to the phase or a space in your process of learning where you become conscious about learning to learn that skill, be it swimming, driving, or anything for that matter. So just because you have become conscious and you start to make some effort in that direction, it does not mean that you become competent in that activity. So you still go into the pool, you're still trying to struggle with your breathing, and the water is going into your mouth and the nose, and you're struggling and what have you, you know and you're still struggling to so you are still incompetent to swim, for example. Then over a period of time, through guidance, through support, and through mentoring and through hand holding of your coach, you started to swim, and you swim, and then you swim, and then you swim. And now there is no coach around, and you go into the pool and you start doing exactly what you were doing, what other people were doing. So now you're conscious about that skill area, and you're consciously competent. So you have learned that skill with effort. You have learned it, but you're still conscious. So you still do follow the advice, as your trainer told you that you have to have this stroke like this, that stroke like this, that should be the combination of your foot stroke or hand stroke, this is how you breathe, blah blah blah. All those things are happening very, very consciously. Okay. Few years down the line, when you continue to practice, now I'm going to place an emphasis on this word practice. If you keep on practicing, what happens to you is you become unconscious about your skill and your competency, and you become competent. So for example, if I take the example of driving, now if somebody says to you 2 o'clock in the morning, or maybe whatever difficult terrain or situation that might be, that, oh, we have to be there in so and so, there's this emergency. So you quickly pick up your keys, jump into your car, and here you go. And often you would realize, halfway through, you would realize, how the hell I've come up to this point? How did I start? When did I start? When I put my keys into the car? And this is the kind of stage of competency where you are so competent that even you are unaware of it. Okay. So a lot of the people you will find, they will talk about it, how these things happen. So you then become equally competent as those people who actually gave you fear in the beginning of the process. Okay. Other aspect that I wanted to kind of touch upon here is the learning process. Actually, it completes into 3 or 4 stages. A lot of the time, the first thing is listening. Listening could be from any source. It could be classroom, it could be a book, it could be television, it could be any source, or, from your teachers. So you listen to the information, and next stage is that you start reflecting and play with that information, and you look at what is it okay, is it not okay, is it right, it is not right, does it work, does it not work. So you analyze and you critically evaluate information and its usefulness, whether it is worth it or not. And then what you should do in normal course of that, you start to put that knowledge into practice. And when you start to put that knowledge into practice, you will find you will have a personal experience of it. Okay. And once you have the personal experience of the knowledge, you start to own that knowledge. So we can go next slide. Yeah. So the beauty about learning in this way is once you learn through personal experience, practice and personal experience, and you follow this process of learning, what happens is the learning becomes permanent. And sometime Sanjeev did ask me, oh, you should use an academic example. I can't think of at this point in time, but point is, I mean, if I can use it, I think there's a whole lot of things that we have learned as students in our chemistry labs, and we understand what is the nature of HCl, for example. Once I know the nature of HCl and I've done, the tests, and we have done the experiments under supervision of our, teachers and stuff. So now I fully understand. I've got a personal experience of the nature of HCl, for example, or it could be anything. Now I know, so I never forget in my entire life. I may not know the composition, I may not know the table value, we may not know a lot of technical things about it, but we actually own that knowledge. Having talked about what I have talked about so far, the process of learning, and what sort of psychological subconscious processes are involved into learning process. Let's look at what is mind, because that is the theme of our discussion today. So that is the question that we are going to be posing to you. Sanjeev, do we have an exercise?
Yeah, very quick. Very quick. In one word, again, you have to go to menti.com, and in a couple of words, just mention what do you think mind is. People may have different idea about what mind is. So just let us know from you. Yeah, yeah. We started getting responses on that.
Control, it's a machine, it's a web, unaware. It's an open space, somebody says. The thinking faculties, CPU of body, very good.
It must be some engineer.
No,
which is true, actually, which is
true. It is true. I think
very,
this
very
goes
true.
with the example or analogy I used of a car. As engine is to a car, mind is to a body, which is very good. Ability to reason. Okay.
So we'll wait for a few more seconds to get some more answers, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, we got open space, collapse. Store experiences, powerful weapon to think, controlling our emotions, guide your body. To know the word, somebody says on the chat, I think. To know the word.
So should we move on? I think we got some good, fairly good responses, and very diverse and very representative of what actually.
So for the purpose of this discussion, and I would say to you, take it. You're not obliged to believe in what I'm telling you or accept it what I'm telling you. So mind actually is believed to be a constant flow of thoughts, and as somebody says there, it's a CPU of body, which is exactly true. The lot what happens through our body is actually is a manifestation of your thoughts. So I've used these two words here. One is says Shansyatmika and Nischyatmika. These are the two natures of mind. If you think about it, every time you have information or anything that you receive, first thing you do is you doubt, is it okay, is it not, whether it will work, whether it will not work. So that is called Sanshyatmika, is doubts. And the second faculty of mind is decisive faculty, which helps you to decide what you want to do. So let's go to the next one. Okay. So in these two Hindi or Sanskrit words that I have used, it's actually the combination of two words, Sanshya and Atmika, Nishchya and Atmika. Atmika meaning the self. So from here, I would like to infer that mind is actually an aspect of my own self. Okay, that's it. Let's go forward. Otherwise, I'll go on and on about it. Okay. So you would notice all our actions that is performed with a doubt in my mind, we seldom succeed. And you know what I said, don't take my words for it. Whatever I'm saying to you, please help to understand these statements with your own personal experiences in life. Okay. And any actions performed with decisiveness, you will find your chances of your success are substantially improved. And most of the time you end up succeeding in doing whatever you do. Let's go. Okay. So put it in other words. So Sanshyatmika basically gives you a mindset which says, I can't do this. I am not able to do this. I won't be able to pass. I won't be able to do X, Y, Z. Okay, so that is a kind of I can't mindset. And Nischyatmika, if you work through Nischyatmika, most of the time, it gives you a mindset where you become an I can person. So you may look at a thing and say, well, I don't know how to do it, but I don't see why I can't do it. Or most of the time you take up this kind of a position in life, and you find when you take position of I can, you end up doing it, or those things will happen to you. And you can validate it from your own personal experiences. So let's see what science tells us about it. So I'm going to kind of use very briefly in half a second and show you what is there on the slide. Actually, this is a kind of a very brief introduction to cognitive behavior therapy in psychology. And what it says is that your belief systems, whatever you believe in, and basically at this point in time, for the purpose of discussion, whatever you believe about yourself, they give rise to your thoughts. So the texture of your thought depends on what you believe in. And based on your automatic thought, these thoughts are manifested in your behavior, your action, and your performance. So putting it simply, if you have a negative belief about yourself, you will have negative thoughts about yourself, and you'll end up performing negatively in your life. And counter is equally true. If you have a positive belief system about yourself, you'll have positive thoughts and you'll end up performing positively. So this is kind of a validation from what we get from science. So now look at these two real examples. So the reason I brought these examples back to you now is because I think these actually fit into what I just talked about in last two slides. So this is the young person who was going through a traumatic time in her family, and that actually put her into a state of mind where she was very, very stressed, and she started to blame herself. She had a lot of negativity, and she didn't know, what to do, and and what was going on around her. So there was a kind of a family situation which this girl was stuck in, and hence she got a lot of negativity that she perceived and accumulated about herself, and her mind became very, very agitated. As a result, she could not concentrate on her studies, and that's what her complaint, that she cannot focus on what she wants to do, what she wants to study, blah, blah, blah. And that made her to be stressed. So idea here was, with help and support, this young person was shown what I'm going to share with you in next few slides. And that girl, the beauty of this girl was that girl actually acted upon that advice that was offered to her, and hence she was able to turn situation in her favor. And exactly the same goes for the second example. So both of these examples actually are proving the point which I just shared with you. Now, I will just leave this thought with you. I think all of us, you can definitely count on one at least, if not many, examples from your own life where when you thought about something that I can do this, that ended up happening in your life. And those things that which you believed it is not possible, you can't do it, then those things never happen in your life. So this is something which is not me telling you. This is your own personal life experiences are telling you. So it all depends on us. Where do you want to focus and how do you want to learn our mind to focus in what direction? Let's go next. So let's decode. Okay, so here on this slide, I've got, there are many more dimensions of mind, the qualities of mind or nature of mind. You can use whichever word helps you. But I have practically, particularly chosen these 6 today for the purpose of this discussion, which I think if we can help our young people and our students to believe. So if you look at, let's go forward, Sanjeev, because you have to go quickly. Okay. So first of the code, if I'm calling it code because our title is decoding it. So first, these 6 statements that I'm sharing with you, actually, they are belief systems. So this is a belief. Do you believe in it? Okay. So this is very contrary to what normally our existing beliefs are. So I don't think I ever thought of that mind is my servant, but I can tell you, mind actually works exactly like a diligent servant. So what this means is that whatever you think, your mind is going to deliver that to you. And that is the kind of strength and power mind holds. Okay. So next one is mind is not only your dedicated servant, diligent servant. It is very dedicated to you, meaning whatever you may be, whatever maybe you're asked, you may be asking whatever. Okay. So it doesn't really matter how small or how big is your ask. Mind's job is to deliver it to you. So mind fulfills all our desires so long as you are specific, sincere, and committed. Okay. So here I just want to draw a distinction. A lot of people say, oh, I wanted this, that never happened to me. And I say, well, I'm not surprised. So when I say ask, I'm not just simply asking about wishful thinking. Wishful thinkings are seldom materialized. So you have to be very, very sincere and committed to your desire. If you are sincere and if you're committed in the same proportion as the intensity of your desire, it will be fulfilled. Next. Okay. Now, this is very, very important, and this is on a very subconscious level. We may be aware of it and we may not be aware of it, but mind follows your instructions very, very diligently, even if that you consciously instruct your mind or subconsciously instruct your mind. Whether you verbalize your demand or you just think like that, your mind will continue to follow your instructions. And next one on the next slide is mind actually is not bothered or concerned whether whatever you are asking, whether it is negative or positive, because mind's job is to fulfill your desire. It is very, very committed. It will never ask the question to the master, which is yourself or the student in this case. So if a student says, I want to have 95%, I'm just using this as an example. So far as I'm concerned, any percentage is irrelevant. So far as I'm concerned, it's just a kind of indication of your 3 hours performance on the day. But if that is the demand, and if you're sincere and committed to your demand or your ask, your mind will follow that instruction. And if you believed that you can't have 90 whatever percent, mind will be not concerned and will prove it to you right, because that is the another nature of mind. Next slide actually says that mind has one simple job for you. Whether you think negative or positive, whether you think is small or big, or whether whatever that may be, mind has to prove you right. So mind has to prove you right, and that is the job of mind. So if you think that I can't do it, mind in not in words but in manifestation will prove it to you. Yes, you are right, sir. I will prove it to you how you can't do it. And contrary is also true. If you believe that you can do something, mind will talk back at you and say, yes, sir, I'm sure you can do it. Now I'll bring that in your experience to prove it to you, you can do it. Okay. So these are the belief system. Let me stress, because I think they're coming to end of it. So these are the belief systems, and with my experience that I have experimented with some of the kids in India, and I've done a lot of this work with hundreds of young people who I work with, and I have learned from them. And I have not talked to them. I have not talked to them about the subject matters that they study, whether it is mathematics, science, English, or whatever. I never touch upon subject matters. I simply help them to understand the mechanism which works from within themselves. Some people have said they're the inner strength of you, or the CPU of you. So if your CPU is working perfectly and in good health, what you see on the screen is definitely is going to be very, very glossy, very fine, and functioning perfectly. So what it requires is, even if a young person has chosen, or young person has put into this process of altering their belief system about themselves, and they diligently follow these 3-6 codes, what they need is a nurturing environment. Without this nurturing environment, it becomes very, very difficult, unless the child is extremely motivated and on their own devices they can get on with it and do it. Some of these things you can read on this slide. So just to give you an example, this 11-year-old girl, for her it was very, very difficult to believe in what I was telling her. So I said, okay, you don't have to believe what I'm saying to you. Why don't you have your own personal experience? So she told me waking up early in the morning is the most difficult thing that she can ever do, because she has never woken up 4 o'clock in the morning. So I worked with her. I taught her, how do you do it without any aid, without your mother or father waking you up, without an alarm clock, or without anybody. And I said, you do follow these instructions. And if you follow some of these instructions, I can be absolutely sure that you will be able to wake up early in the morning. And the pact was, when she did wake up in the morning, she was going to send me a WhatsApp message using her mother's phone, which is this. So I've hidden the details there. If you can see in this green circle, she sent me a message at 4:01. Okay. So this is what I think. I have skipped something, a slide which talks about the smart prayer. So not just having wishful thinking, one has to learn to make your expectations from your own self, your desires and your goals. And if you are very, very specific about prayer, because this material is also available in modern literature, as well as it is available in our old Indian texts. So which talks about, and what does this smart prayer is, I'm quickly going to go through it. So whatever you ask, you should be specific. And what is specific? Specific is like this. If I ask you, give me a lot of money, you would have a problem, because you don't know how much money you want to give me or I want from you. But if I ask you, give me 5,000 rupees, so you know within second or fraction of a second, then I'm asking 5,000. So there is no confusion. A lot of the time we don't know that our language and the words that we use in our day-to-day life is so vague that your mind is so confused actually what you're after. I don't even know what you want. So if I don't know what you want, what I'm going to deliver it to you. Okay. So one has to be very specific. Specificity is based on that if you get what you want, how would you know you got it exactly in the same measure as you demanded? So for example, if I ask you 5,000 and if you go for 50, so I know how to count it. Okay. So I can count it and say, well, this demand is not measured to my expectation, or it has measured to my expectation. So measurable. Next two things are achievable and realistic. And a lot of people, when I ask them, say, so who is going to decide what is achievable for me and what is realistic for me? I say, well, who else? You decide what is achievable for you. Nobody is going to decide for you what is achievable and what is realistic. Well, realistic, you decide. If you say, I want 1 crore rupee tomorrow morning, well, do you think it is realistic? If answer is no, then I'm telling you, you're not going to get it. So you'll have to be realistic. And based on your these two factors, achievability and realistic, you define a definitive timeline or a date, if you, depending on what you're asking, Lot of the time I insist upon young people that put a date to your achievement. By so and so date I would have accomplished it. By so and so date I will achieve this. So I sometimes insist, especially with young people, when they are helping them to practice some of these techniques, and invariably either on that day or much before that day they end up gaining what they demanded. So this is a kind of a scientific procedure. It is also supported by a lot of our in the old Indian scriptures or literature. And all that I've talked about, it just not happen just by knowing about it. The lot of emphasis I place on the same learning process that I touched upon, that when you know something, you must reflect over it, so that people can lead. Sort of the conclusion, in my view, with my experience, I can tell you is all students or all young people, whether they're a student or not, but particularly all students are inherently intelligent. They are born to succeed. And I go to the extent in saying that every student is an Einstein. They have a capacity to reach their full potential, and a student capacity to learn depends largely on their mental strength. There are other factors as well. This is not the only factor, but largely their mental strength, how strong they are in terms of their self-esteem, in terms of their knowledge of what works and how mental strength they have. And there are other factors important, but having a positive mindset and can-do attitude actually has a huge impact on their academic performance. And a student must be encouraged to build this mental strength or their mental muscles by practicing on these codes. And if young people are supported, I'm very sure what a lot of other young people have managed to achieve, a lot of young people that you are going to assist or work with, they too will be able to achieve their full potentials. And that's where I think the parents, teacher, and all adults in their lives have a very, very crucial role to play, to encourage them, to support them, and to give them that nurturing environment which facilitate that growth and development, in addition to all the efforts which are going in terms of academic learning in the school, through the books, through the coaching, through a whole lot of other coaching that is going through. But if their mind is very well established and it is in peaceful state of affairs, their learning becomes far greater and they end up performing well. With that, I think I've taken a lot of time. Apologize for that, but I put my, stop to my voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Anupam, for a very, very insightful session. And I think you covered a lot about the practical experiences, about the psychology behind, and practical dimensions to learning. And I'm sure this would help all of us as parents and as teachers to help our young students and children to really perform better. And it's not about marks alone, but it's about doing better in life, right? In academics and otherwise doing well in life also. So there is one question I'll take, with your permission, I'll just take a couple of minutes, guys. So there is a question, Anupam, very briefly in one sentence or a couple of sentences, if you can answer, that they say there's a lot of education going online nowadays, right? Because students, even nursery students and pre-nursery students going on Zoom classes, right? Any piece of advice, right? While it's technical subject, but any piece of advice, how can that learning be really effective?
So I think your question is whether the face-to-face learning or online learning or learning through any medium.
Yeah.
And I think I will just keep going back to what I shared. I think it's not is the medium through which you learn matters. What matters is when you capture information which is coming through to you, whether it's coming through a teacher, whether it's coming through a screen, or whether it's coming through whichever medium. I think it's whether what do you end up doing with it? Because normally what happens, you will find generally what happens is 95% students stop at first stage of listening. Very few end up into reflective mode, very small percentage of them. And even very limited number of people out of that small number will go to the next stage of practicing and then kind of having a personal experience of that information. That's why you would find in every class of 40, 50 students, you will only have 2 or 3 which are hitting 98%. Rest of them now, rest of them are actually under such a tremendous pressure of cramming the information and have the pressure of recalling that information on the day. and offloading it onto the paper. And if their state of mind is not stable in during those 3 hours, they end up messing with it. But despite whatever they have done before that day, if they can learn to keep their mind stable during those 3 hours, you will find they end up performing well. So I don't know whether I've answered your question. My view is very firm that mode, yeah, it might affect, okay, say in face to face in one class, what you can achieve, it might take you 2 online sessions or 3 online sessions. Nonetheless, it is the what happens after you have received the information is
Correct.
far more important than the medium itself. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think what we'll do, guys, we have some questions that you received from you in chat and otherwise. We'll make sure that these are answered to you respectively through email because of paucity of time. There are a couple of announcements that we have. One is on Agile TA, that is on 2nd of June, 3 to 5 p.m. So it's a live virtual class that I'm running. If anyone is interested, you can go to our events page in Enabling World, or you can scan the QR code and register for that. It's particularly useful for people in recruitment and who are in HR leadership positions. Next, we have a very high-end program coming, which is led by Sushil. This is on IC certification program. It's a very, very specialized program coming up for HR leaders who are into IC or investigations, for HR partners, senior HR partners. So this program is starting on 9th June. It's a 6 days, 6 sessions program, 12 hours of learning. And Sushil brings a huge experience with him in this subject. He's a subject matter expert, one of the very few subject matter experts in the country. So you can benefit from this program in case you are keen on. Again, you can go to events page, or you can scan the code or the event code on the QR code, which is on your screen now. And as always, moving on, next week, every week we come up with some knowledge session. Next week, we have a very interesting topic, which is on ethics and integrity in new normal in the virtual world, right? Is ethics and integrity practices will remain same, or it has to change for the managers? So that is something which will be run by our colleague and partner Prerna, and she has huge expertise in this area. She stays in Chandigarh. So she'll be there to take this session and share her expertise on this topic. You know, what's going on will be very useful for the managers and HR and the senior leaders on how to manage ethics and integrity in the current time, which is very, very different. So that's what we had to share with you. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And I'm sorry we did not have enough time for the question answers, but I'm sure you would have found it useful. It's a complex subject, and Anupam did a brilliant job of giving us a framework of covering, most of these ideas in just 40-50 minutes. And you can reach out to us as an educational institution if you need any counseling services for students and to help the teachers. Anupam is a great expert in this area, so you can always leverage that. So we'll stay for a few seconds. Otherwise, anything, any comment?
Yeah, just quickly, I'm particularly very interested in what sometimes you define a student as low or underperforming students.
Yeah.
So if any of these schools or institutions have a group, obviously when this lockdown is over, or if we can find an online version of it, so I can really be quite keen and interested to take a group of low performing student or a student who are fearing to fail, to work with them and help them to do little better and gain some more confidence. So if anybody is interested, they can use our emails and to write to us, and we will think and plan something about it.
Thank you very much. So with that, we'll close the session. You have been a great audience, very engaging and interactive. So stay safe and continue promoting young children to achieve their dreams. So thank you very much. See you next time. Bye-bye.